amazing investors. I wanted to jump on here and have a short conversation with you about relationships. And my question is, or my topic is, how are your relationships holding you back? And that's also a question. Let me ask you this. Think about it. Think about all the relationships in your life, your relationship with your spouse, your kids, yes, even your kids, your relationship with your business partners, collaborators, friends, family. How are they holding you back? And for many people, this question is actually very painful to answer. And being human beings, we avoid the things that are uncomfortable and painful. Or more specifically, our mind doesn't want to deal with it because one, it takes a shit ton of energy. If you look at our physiology, our brain already takes well over 20% of our energy reserves. And when you're going through challenging periods or when you feel unhappy, disconnected, unfulfilled, or you feel like you're not understood, not heard, not supported in your relationships and within your team, whether that be a business team or a personal team. Personal team is your family, your friends, and those around you. Then even though it's painful, even though it affects you, there's a long time before you're forced or before your mind gets to a point where, you know what, I'm losing more energy than I'm gaining here. I better deal with this. And that wastes a lot of energy, time. And let me put this in perspective. I have worked with clients of mine who are investors or entrepreneurs where they've been in really bad relationships for decades. I'm not talking about like a few months, decades usually in their personal life. And doesn't mean that they should have broken up their marriage or relationship. It means that they've been in that relationship not knowing how to deal with it for decades. And to this day, they don't know. And they are not confronting it because it's too much for them to confront it. And they don't know how to confront it. They don't know how to work through it. They don't know how to process it. Why? Unfortunately, we're not taught how to, the investors are very aware of that. What do they not teach in school? What do they not teach in our families? Finances. They don't teach us how finances work, how investing works, how business works. But there's another one that's worse than that. We're not taught how relationships work. In fact, the way school systems are set up, the way many of our families are set up, it goes against how our relationships should work. I'm not saying everything is negative, but when you look at how school systems are structured, they don't help you build teams. They don't help you work together. They help you work separate from each other. Many of you have read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What do they do in classrooms? Sit alone and answer your questions. Don't talk to each other. Don't collaborate. Yeah, we do some team building stuff here and there, but for the most part, you do alone. In real life, you go out there, you have to work with other people. You have to find ways to refine. You have to find ways to figure out how to pay less taxes. You have to find ways to figure out how to make money better. You have to find ways to collaborate better, build better connections. It's all around other people and relationships, and we're taught the complete opposite of it in our school systems. We're just taught to do our own thing. We're trained to do a few things here and there. And the reason why I'm sharing this is that, and this is the unfortunate part, and by the way, I'll start with myself. I struggled with all this myself. To this day, it's hard for me to work through relationships, but I've learned so many things that help me deal with it so things don't stay for long periods. For example, this past week, I've been struggling with a piece of my relationship with my wife, and we were in conflict. We were arguing. A few years ago, if this would have happened, this was the end of the world for me. And then, of course, even though this was very hard, the end of the world in the sense was that, oh, everything is done. I can't be here. I don't have the tools. I don't know how to work it out. But now it's different. Even though it's painful, even though I have to take the time to work through this, even though we have to deal with each other, I'm not afraid to deal with any of this stuff. In fact, I go towards conflict so we can resolve it. Now, most people in relationships, especially in marriages, they avoid conflict. There's a point where that conflict becomes too painful and they start to, especially in North America, maybe even in Europe, where people tend to create separate lives. They're living in the same home, but they're going in separate directions. It looks like they're married together, but they're not really. And what ends up happening there is that they stopped fighting for their relationships and fighting for their needs. And then in business partnerships, I've seen people for years in business, and business is like dog years compared to human years. Because in business, if your business is not operating for a few months, that's like a few years in a human relationship. This is why human relationships can go on for years before they break up, but business in a few months to a year or so, a couple years tops, it will break down if your team is not operating, if the systems are not operating, if you're not focused on the right thing, it will fail. This is why the business itself forces people to deal with things. But even in business, I've seen people for years, 2-3 years, they're kind of barely limping, and they can't move forward because they're dealing with the wrong partners. They have the wrong partners who are pessimistic. They're draining the hell out of them. They have all sorts of other problems that they don't know how to deal with, and they feel responsible to deal with their problems when they're not showing up responsibly as a business partner. Same thing with collaborators, other team members. They have the wrong team members that are holding them back. One right team member can take you to a whole different place, but one wrong team member can pull you down as well. And think about family and friends. A lot of people are around a lot of negative people, and they don't know how to set boundaries. They don't know how to tell them that that's not what they want, and their identity is constantly shaped and designed and reinforced by their social circle around them. This is why we're told over and over, you're the average of 5 people around you. People hear that, and we know this mentally, but it doesn't hit us internally how much we're affected by the thoughts, by the emotions, by the things that people say around us, even if we're aware of it, because a lot of this stuff happens subconsciously. It's not conscious. And here's a clue: if you feel something around what somebody says, and even that's a little bit odd because a lot of people are not even aware of what they feel because they push it down. If you feel something, that means it's affecting you to some degree. This is why news, media, they focus so much on feelings and emotions, especially emotions that are on the survival side, like fear and resentment and hatred, because they know that they will grab your mind, like they get a hold of you. Most people are their lives are run by news and media, let alone their friends and family. But think about it, your relationships are one of the biggest determinant factor for your success, happiness, well-being, fulfillment, all of it. And if you have any lack of clarity, any challenge, any confusion, or any ways to improve those relationships, you want to jump on that. And this is an opportunity for you to jump on to come to an opportunity like this, which is, I lost my thoughts here. Jump on an opportunity like this. This is what happens in life. But in any case, next week I'll see you at 9 a.m. Eastern on July 11th, Thursday. Block out 3 hours. I guarantee you're going to gain a lot out of this, and you're going to be surrounded by some incredible people. You might even meet your collaborators and business partners in the real estate world, in the business world. We're going to go through a very powerful workshop. It's not a workshop where I sit there and train and bore you. It's a workshop where I actually walk you through a process. I'm going to walk you through an assessment in the beginning to help you figure out what are the key major areas. And one of those is relationships, for you to be consistently aware of, for you to deal with the challenges that you need to deal with in those areas. Only six you can handle. A lot of people try to deal with 50 different things. It doesn't matter. This is based on a proven system. If you can figure out these 6 areas, everything else will, by the nature of taking care of those major things, will figure themselves out. I'm going to walk you through an assessment that will help you understand where are the areas that you're stuck in and where are the areas you need to pay attention to move forward. And then the second half, we're going to focus on your relationships. I'm not going to train you and tell you. You can find all that on my YouTube channel and other places. I'm going to walk you through a process to figure out what's actually happening in your life. And that's usually very painful and uncomfortable to do on our own. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. But what you will notice is that it's much more painful to actually not deal with this for the next 10 years and regret at the end of the 10 years, what did I do? So you want to go through a workshop like this. It will help you reconnect to your relationships and to the most important piece of your life, which is your relationship, whether it's in your business or personal life. I'm going to walk you through this process that's going to completely transform the way you look at your relationships, the way you approach them, and you're going to get some powerful tools for you to move forward. And I won't even leave it at that. I'll give you a bunch of bonuses for you to move towards and actually work through it on your own. And why do I do this? Well, this actually, we get connected. You see that I get to serve you. If you feel like you need support from me, you will want to work with me, and or at least connect me with somebody. So this serves me as well, but it serves me to connect with other people, other investors who I want to serve, who I want to support. And this is not just a business for me. I have other businesses, but this is yes, it is my main business, but the reason why I do this, because it's very closely tied to my purpose, what I've gone through in my life. I struggled with all this for years, for decades. I didn't know how to deal with this. I had to deal with depression, addictions, and even almost suicidal thoughts, and possibly suicide if I didn't deal with any of that stuff for years. I had to work through all this stuff to figure out for 15 plus years what this means. But this one workshop can completely transform how you deal with this part of your life. You might not have to wait 15 years or 10 years. And like I said, if you feel aligned with working with me, you will know how I serve you and how I work with you, and so you will get an experience of that. The last part, you're gonna get to connect with amazing investors. I attract some of the best people in the industry. There will be at least 50 investors there, and I'm capping it at 50 attendees. So and we're actually going to do breakouts. Part of the reason I made this a 3-hour workshop versus a 2-hour workshop, because we're going to be doing breakouts. You're going to get to connect and network with people, with investors in your industry too, and you will also learn a lot from these people who are doing incredible in their lives, and they've found better ways of dealing with their relationships moving forward. So it's going to be very interactive and discussion based. So I'm excited to see you there in this live workshop, coaching session, whatever you want to call it, on July 11th, Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Block out 3 hours. Click on the link below and register. You cannot afford to miss this. This will not only serve you, but everybody you get to serve in your life, and this will carry with you for generations to come. I'm excited to support you. Until then, hope you have an incredible day. Bye.